Gary Ridgway, infamously known as the Green River Killer, was convicted of 49 confirmed offences and confessed to over 70 during his reign of terror in the 1980s and 1990s. He targeted vulnerable women, often sex workers, and disposed of their bodies near the Green River in Washington state. His seemingly unremarkable demeanour, coupled with the severity of his actions, has made him a significant subject of study in criminal psychology and forensic profiling. This interview, recorded after his capture, offers a chilling insight into the mind of one of America's most prolific serial killers. As we analyse his statements, body language, and emotional responses, we aim to understand the psychological and behavioural traits that enabled him to commit such heinous acts over such an extended period. In the opening minutes of the interview, Ridgway discusses his early life, particularly his relationship with his mother. His description of wanting her to stop and the recollection of violent fantasies beginning in 4th grade highlights a significant psychological conflict. The early emergence of violent ideation, particularly directed toward a parental figure, is a key indicator of underlying psychological disturbances. Ridgway's inability to articulate the specifics of his thoughts during this time and his vague references to wanting her to stop suggest a repressed and unresolved rage. This inability to process anger in a healthy way, combined with his mother's aggressive behavior towards him, likely contributed to his development of a violent fantasy life. His admission of transferring these violent impulses to other living beings, such as animals, aligns with the classic MacDonald triad, which links animal cruelty, fire setting, and bedwetting as early warning signs of future violent behavior. His mention of stabbing a peer in school reflects an escalation in behavior that went unnoticed or unaddressed, allowing his violent tendencies to develop unchecked. This early manifestation of aggressive and antisocial behavior is characteristic of individuals who later develop into serial offenders. It suggests a deep-seated need to exert control and inflict harm, driven by unresolved anger and a lack of healthy emotional outlets.
I didn't really think I had an urge to kill her. I just wanted her to stop. And
what did you want to do to her?
what did I want to do with her? Just to have her stop and.
But how would you do it? What did you think in your head about how you would do it? That's what we're trying to get at. When did you first think about treating your mom violently to get what you wanted her to do?
Probably in 4th grade.
Okay, there we go. Fourth,
the 5th and the 6th was probably up to that grade.
and what was in your mind that you wanted to do to get her to treat you a certain way? What did you want to do to your mom here?
I wanted her to stop being angry at me for not knowing how to...
But she wasn't stopping.
No, she wasn't stopping.
Was she?
No.
She kept picking on you, belittling you, embarrassing you. I mean, that was pretty clear from yesterday.
It happened in school, too, so I
So what was your way of retaliating against her in your mind? What were you thinking to do to your mom?
I don't know if I was thinking of hurting her. I just wanted her to stop and let me alone. Angry at her for pushing on me to remember, and I just couldn't remember, and I just wanted her to stop.
But she didn't.
She didn't know.
She didn't stop. So somewhere in the 4th or 5th grade, that sense of helplessness that you had not being able to get her to stop would very likely have produced thoughts of taking back some power and control over your mom to get the bitch to shut up. I mean, I'm sorry, but Gary, that's what we hear, and that's what one of the things we're looking to get a better understanding of.
During that thing, I usually took it out on uh, uh, other things instead of hurting her. Uh, um,
Living things?
Living things, killing animals,
Okay.
killing animals. I stabbed a kid one time.
Okay.
Stabbed a kid with a knife.
Tell me about that.
Down by Chinook, where I used to go to school, and boy was playing. I stabbed him inside, and I didn't kill him. And I must have been about 6th grade, I think it was 7th grade, and that was sometime I was, breaking out windows, throwing rocks at windows at his
Not
school.
interested in that.
But that's what I took my.
Ridgway's discussion about his fantasies involving his mother takes a deeply unsettling turn as he describes both violent and sexual thoughts. The blending of these two conflicting emotions, rage and sexual attraction, is indicative of a paraphilic disorder where the individual derives sexual gratification from violent or taboo scenarios. His description of fantasizing about his mother while simultaneously harboring thoughts of harming her reveals a profound cognitive dissonance. This convergence of violent and sexual fantasies is often observed in individuals with severe personality disorders, such as psychopathy or sexual sadism. Ridgway's objectification of his mother, viewing her as both a figure of hate and a sexual object, reflects a deep-seated misogyny that likely fueled his later offenses. The duality of seeing his mother as both a victim and a source of perverse attraction illustrates how his early experiences shaped his perception of women, ultimately contributing to his selection of vulnerable female victims. His casual mention of using his hands or a knife to harm his mother, followed by a transition into sexual fantasies, indicates an almost complete detachment from the moral and emotional implications of his thoughts. This lack of empathy and the compartmentalization of his fantasies from his actions are key traits of a psychopathic personality, where the individual can envision and enact violence without experiencing the distress or guilt that would inhibit most people.
Aggression, and I couldn't take it on my mom. I had to take it on my animals and
How many
the
animals
kids.
did you kill?
I killed a lot of birds, but one cat suffocated in an ice chest,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, shot babies at dogs to hurt them, and threw lots of rocks at my brother. About that time, I think I was getting out of that, though.
You couldn't take your aggressions out on your mom,
No, I couldn't.
but you could think about it.
I could think about it, and
What'd you think?
I thought about hurting her, so she'd shut up and leave me alone, and then
How did you think about hurting your mom?
killing her.
And how would you do that?
With my hands, or I didn't have no guns or anything, so I didn't. It had to have been hands or.
And then after she was dead, what were you going to do in your head?
In my head, I don't know what I would do. I just wanted her to stop. One time there, they were going to put me in a special school. I didn't want that. My dad and my mom were arguing about it all the time. It was for retarded people, and I wasn't retarded, I don't think. So I was mad at them for wanting to put me away from other kids. And wanting to hurt her, and hurt her bad.
What does that mean? Hurt or bad? Help me to understand that.
Just beat her up so she wouldn't leave me alone, and
How would you do that in your head?
my hands, beat her up with my hands, maybe use a knife.
What would you do with the knife?
I'd probably stab her with it. She was the big problem I had. I mean, my dad wasn't around that much. He was working all the time, and she was the only one of us in control, and she was constantly trying to get me to do better in school, and I just couldn't do better. I wanted to have her stop, and the only way was to kill her, to hurt her bad.
Help me understand the knife.
The knives are in the drawer. That would be, I use a knife on that, stab that boy, and I use a knife on her if I wanted to. It's a way of killing. And
8:01 to 12 o'clock. Ridgway's explicit fantasies about having sex with his mother, while simultaneously harboring thoughts of killing her, further emphasize his complex psychological profile. His fixation on her as both an object of desire and a source of intense frustration reflects a profound confusion between love and hate, pleasure and pain. This confusion is a hallmark of psychosexual dysfunction, where normal boundaries between familial relationships and sexual attraction become blurred. The fact that Ridgway viewed his mother as the only female figure in his life capable of eliciting such strong, conflicting emotions indicates a significant attachment issue. This enmeshment, where his identity and emotional experiences are closely tied to his mother, likely contributed to his objectification and dehumanization of women in general. His victims, like his mother, became targets for his unresolved rage and distorted sexual desires. Ridgway's casual recounting of these fantasies, with no apparent awareness of their disturbing nature, reveals a lack of insight often seen in individuals with severe antisocial or narcissistic traits. His focus remains on his own experiences and desires, with no acknowledgement of the ethical or emotional implications of his thoughts. This self-centered worldview, devoid of empathy or guilt, is a core feature of the psychopathic personality.
and
Walk me through what you were going to do with the knife in your head to your mother.
cut her throat. So she wouldn't stop degrading me and putting me in. I couldn't remember things, and that was the only way I could think of hurting her to get her to stop.
When did you think about having sex with your mother?
When 14 or 15, I think.
Tell me about that. It's about the same time frame.
I'd see her out sunbathing, and I feel that she'd be good to have sex with, but she's my mother, and I never really. She's the only woman in my life, other than neighborhood girls. But I get fantasies of having sex with her, and wanting to, but being restricted on that part.
Explain to me fantasies and restricted on that part. Your
Well,
word.
because if she's my mother, it's not right for having sex with your mother. And she was always in two pieces, and she'd come off work, she'd go in the backyard, so it was inviting to fantasize with her. She was there sunbathing and tan, and it was a something that really intrigued me. It's all women like this. They're different, and it roused me to. I get a hard on sometimes, and it was the only time I had an opposite sex. In class, everybody's clothed and stuff like that. This was a woman that was sometimes, laying down with no bra on. I mean, you couldn't see anything but bare skin, and it was a turn on in a way, and I enjoyed looking out the window at her when she wasn't watching.
Did your mom enjoy that?
She didn't even know I was there. No, she was down just sunbathing, and then she'd turn over. And before she turned over, she always fastened her bra and turned over, and maybe a little bit up here to show because she had no tan marks. And I stared and looked out all the time.
And had your fantasies?
I had a fantasy, yes.
It makes sense to me. Makes sense that you would have a fantasy. Need to have you tell me what that was.
During this segment, Ridgway's discussion of his hatred towards his mother, juxtaposed with his sexual fantasies about her, illustrates the depth of his psychological turmoil. His description of her as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde reflects his inability to reconcile the conflicting images of her as both a nurturing and punitive figure. This internal conflict likely contributed to his externalization of aggression, where he projected his rage onto his victims as a means of controlling and dominating them in a way he could not with his mother. His continued emphasis on wanting to harm her with his hands or a knife suggests a fixation on physical violence as a means of expressing his frustration and anger. This focus on using his hands to kill indicates a desire for direct, intimate control over his victims, a trait common among sexual sadists who derive gratification from the act of killing itself. His fascination with knives and the detailed planning of how he would use them to harm his mother reveals a ritualistic aspect to his fantasies, a precursor to the ritualistic behaviors often seen in serial offenders. Ridgway's inability to detach from these fantasies, despite his awareness of their inappropriateness, suggests a profound cognitive distortion where his thoughts and desires are intertwined in a dangerous, uncontrollable cycle. This inability to control or redirect his thoughts is a key factor in understanding the compulsive nature of his later crimes, where he enacted his violent fantasies on real victims in a desperate attempt to achieve the psychological resolution he never found in his youth.
Just a fantasy of wanting to have sex, to touch her, feel her body, have her show me how to have sex. Because mothers teach you a lot of things, It's just a fantasy. It's something she wouldn't do it, but it's.
In your fantasy, what would your mom have you do to her?
Have me do to her. My fantasy would be to explore, to find different things which a woman has, girls have that guys don't have. Show me how to have sex, good sex. What the woman wants, and feel every bit of her body to enjoy a woman and have sex with her.
But at the same time in your life, and listen carefully to this, at the same time in your life, you also hate your mom for what she's doing to you.
Yes.
So how are those thoughts and fantasies colliding together? Because we know that that happens. How are they colliding together in your head?
And gliding together in my head when she was just laying down there, she was more of a sex object than a mother, and more of the fantasies of having sex with her and nothing to have and to kill her. It was two different things. When she was always Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, when she's down there, she's a sex fantasy, sex object. When she's up there trying to get me to read, and she's the other side of something I hated. I loved the part of her being a sex object, but I didn't like the part of her being a mother and working with me as trying to help me in reading, and I liked the sex part better than I liked the mother that was always trying to hurt, belittle me, and because I wasn't. I didn't really think I had an urge to kill her. I just wanted her to stop. And
What did you want to do to her?
what did I want to do with her? Just to have her stop and let me alone. Angry at her for pushing on me to remember, and I just couldn't remember, and I just wanted her to stop.
But she didn't.
She didn't know.
She didn't stop. But how would you do it? What did you think in your head about how you would do it? That's what we're trying to get at. When did you first think about treating your mom violently to get what you wanted her to do?
Probably in fourth grade.
Okay, there we go. Fourth,
the fifth, and the sixth was probably up to that grade.
and what was in your mind that you wanted to do to get her to treat you a certain way? What did you want to do to your mom here?
I wanted her to stop being angry at me for not knowing how to.
But she wasn't stopping,
No, she wasn't stopping.
was she?
No.
She kept picking at you, belittling you, embarrassing you. I mean, that was pretty clear from yesterday.
It happened in school too, so I
So what was your way of retaliating against her in your mind? What were you thinking to do to your mom?
I don't know if I was thinking of hurting her. I just wanted her to stop. And
Gary Ridgway's interview offers a chilling glimpse into the mind of a serial killer shaped by a complex interplay of rage, sexual dysfunction, and psychological fragmentation. His inability to reconcile his conflicting feelings towards his mother, coupled with a deep-seated need to exert control, laid the groundwork for his horrific crimes. Ridgway's capacity for compartmentalization, where he could view his victims as mere objects to be used and discarded, reflects the extreme dehumanization necessary to commit such acts repeatedly over an extended period. This analysis highlights the critical role of early relational trauma and unresolved psychological conflict in the development of serial offending behavior. Ridgway's story serves as a grim reminder of the potential consequences when deep-seated psychological disturbances are left unchecked, transforming internal chaos into outward violence.